My sister-in-law invited me on her bachelorette trip to make amends, but right before our flight, she expected me to pay for everyone. So my sister-in-law, Steffi, 26 female, and I have a lot of history together because we went to high school together, and she was kind of a huge bully, and I just so happened to be one of her favorite targets. Because why not? I was a total nerd in high school, and my appearance certainly did not help my case because I was very skinny and had braces, which was pretty much the bane of my existence. I was literally the typical nerdy girl in a teenage high school movie where they only get ready after they take their glasses off, except that instead of glasses I had to get my braces taken off. And unfortunately, my transformation did not happen until I was in college. Thankfully, I look much better now because I have gained a lot of weight and got my braces taken off before I started college. Not that there's anything wrong with the way I looked before, but right now, I am just a lot less prone to getting bullied by people, that's all. Anyway, I met my husband Andy at a college party a couple of years ago when I was in my third year of college. He was 3 years older than me and was the DJ there. That used to be his part-time job beforehand. I guess it was meant to be because I got really drunk at that party. And he offered to drive me home because my apartment was really far away, and nobody was ready to take me home since I was absolutely wasted. He was nice enough to take me home, and even scribbled his phone number on the back of my hand and told me that I could call him because he liked me. The next day, I woke up with a terrible hangover, but I knew that I had found a really special guy. I called him and asked him out on a date, and that was it. We connected really well on the very first date, and I knew that I had found the one. But the only issue was his sister because he was telling me about his family on the very first date, and we had made that connection instantly because we were talking about our families. He told me that he had a sister named Steffi. Then, when I joked about how I had a bully in high school with the same name, he told me with a very serious face that it might have been his sister because she did have a few behavioral problems when she was in school. Then he told me the name of the high school that she attended, and we realized that his sister was actually my high school bully. It was kind of awkward, but I was not going to let that get in the way of whatever we had, so I told him that it was no big deal because I liked him and not his sister, so she had nothing to do with any of this. And he agreed. After dating for 3 months, we decided that we were going to introduce each other to our families. And while it was relatively easy for me to introduce him to my family, it was kind of difficult and awkward for him because he knew that his sister and I did not have the best relationship. The first time that I had dinner with his family, I was very nervous, mostly because of Steffi, but it actually didn't go that badly. His parents were really warm and kind to me, and Steffi was kind of cold and aloof, but that was still better than the way that she used to treat me back in high school. And I actually prefer this new version of her because this was much less trouble to deal with. So, she didn't talk to me much, and kept our interaction to a minimum. But I counted that as a win because this meant that I would not have to talk to her, and we could just ignore each other and let it go. I'm quite fortunate because that is how things have been with us for the past couple of years, and I have not had to interact with her much, and neither has she expressed any interest in becoming friends with me. Even when Andy and I got married 2 years ago, she only spoke to me as much as was required of her, and that was it. So I would say that she and I are not close at all, and both of us prefer it to be that way because after the way that she treated me in high school, I don't think I would want to be friends with somebody like her anyway. And it's not like Andy has a problem with this either because he is well aware of how mean his sister is capable of being, so he does not mind the fact that the two of us don't talk. He knows that I have not forgiven her for the way she ruined my high school life because she has never shown me that she is sorry, so I can't exactly forgive somebody who's not even sorry. And he understands that and respects it. But he and Steffi have a normal sibling relationship like most other people do, and I don't mind that because I know that he does not see Steffi the same way that I see her, and I am completely fine with that. And it has also been a really long time since high school ended, and I don't want to tell my husband not to talk to his sister and create drama out of nothing because she and I are civil now, and that's all that's necessary. So everything is good in the family, and I got used to it. Honestly, it came as a massive shock to me when, a few weeks ago, Steffi reached out to me to ask me if I would be willing to accompany her on her bachelorette trip to the Greek islands. And she did not just ask me casually on the phone, she actually invited me over for lunch. And even though I was skeptical about it at first, Andy was the one who told me to give it a chance, so I went out to lunch with her. And that's where she asked me. She was really nice to me during that lunch, and even afterward, she finally apologized and addressed the history that we had together instead of pretending like it was non-existent. It was quite shocking for me because I had never expected Steffi to own up to the fact that she had bullied me relentlessly when we were together in high school, and when it finally happened, I had absolutely no idea how to react to it. She told me that. She was sorry about the way that she had treated me back then and told me that she was just being a total brat and realized her mistake way too late. She also mentioned that the reason she had never addressed her behavior, even after I started dating her brother, was because she felt awkward bringing up things from the past and did not know how to face me after everything that she had put me through back when we were teenagers. While talking about all these things, she even threw in some tears to make it seem very genuine, and I, being the gullible, emotional fool that I am, fell for all of hook, line, and sinker. I told her that I forgave her and that it was all in the past anyway because now I did not have any issues with her since we all were adults here, and we could deal with it like we were meant to. And just have a couple of drinks together and forget about it. She seemed happy about it, and we ended that lunch on a good note. She asked me to come with her and join her and her friends on their bachelorette trip to the islands because she wanted to make up for lost time and really make me feel like I was her friend. Initially, I was kind of hesitant to agree to it, but she really talked me into it, and eventually, I just agreed because I thought that it would be a fun experience and it would really help me build a relationship with Steffi, because I was sick of having tension with her anytime we were in the same room. So, after a lot of deliberation, I decided to say yes because I was willing to move on from the past and give our relationship a new and fresh start. And there was no better way to do it than to go on a trip and just let our hair down. That was a couple of weeks ago, and after that, Steffi and I remained in touch. She was getting married next month, and we were going to leave for the trip at the beginning of this week. But it did not happen because of a little stunt that she decided to pull at the airport. She thought that she could trick me into paying for the entire trip by springing the news on me at the airport so that I would not be able to back out. But little did she know that I had absolutely no qualms about ditching them and going back home. Because, unlike her, I did not care about what her friends thought of me, or even what she thought of me. If I'm being very honest. We got there about an hour before our flight was scheduled to leave, and we were all just chatting. But then Steffi said that she wanted to get coffee and asked me to come with her, so I did. And when we were at the counter, she told me really casually, "Oh, by the way, I hope that all your cards work internationally because otherwise you will have a really difficult time paying for stuff." So I told her that I was going to be carrying cash for all the souvenirs and knickknacks that I wanted to buy. And then she told me that she meant more like the hotel rooms and food that we were going to eat, and even the flight tickets, because I would have to reimburse her for all of that. I did not know what she was talking about because we had not discussed this before that point in time. A half an hour before our flight was supposed to take off was really not the right time for this discussion. She was telling me all of this in a really casual tone, so I asked her if she expected me to pay for myself throughout this entire trip, and then she told me, not just yourself, but for everybody on the trip. All of my friends and I. I thought you were going to be paying for this entire thing and sponsoring it, which is why I picked such an expensive destination, since I know that you can afford it. Is that going to be a problem? I still remember the exact words that she said, and I can even hear it in the tone because she was saying it like it was the most obvious thing in the world, even though we had never discussed it, and I had never agreed to any of it. I asked her if she was serious, and she told me that she had obviously expected me to pay for all of this. And she would be forced to think of me as a really stingy miser because I was the person with the biggest paycheck that she knew of, and she could not think of one single reason why I would say no to sponsoring the trip. I could come up with more than a couple of reasons, the first being that I never agreed to any of this, and she never even asked me if I would be okay with it, so I don't understand why she would assume something like this. And even though it was true that I earn more than most people that she knew since I am the VP of a moderately large-scale firm, I still did not think that it was an obligation for me to sponsor her trip, especially because we were still building a relationship. We were not at that point yet, and I was definitely not going to even consider paying for a holiday for a bunch of women that I didn't even know. And more importantly, this is my money and my choice, so she could think of me as a miser or a stingy person. But it would not matter to me because I was not going to spend an exorbitant amount of money on a trip that I did not even organize, and on a bunch of people that I didn't even know or like. So, after a while of just standing there while she was getting coffee, I decided to walk back to where everybody was sitting, grab my stuff, and just leave because this was ridiculous. And I did not want to create a scene in a public space. So, I decided to leave quietly. Steffi chased after me with her coffee, and even her friends tried to ask me what was wrong, but I did not think that it was important to tell them anything. So I just walked out of the airport and got into the first cab that I could find before they got to me. As soon as I was in the cab, I decided to block Steffi so that she would not be able to contact me and annoy me, and the next thing that I did was call Andy up to let him know what had happened. I actually felt pretty bad for him because he had been very excited about the fact that his sister and I were finally getting along together, and I thought that this trip was going to improve our relationship, but clearly both of us had been very wrong about everything. When I called him and told him what Steffi had tried to do, He was even more outraged than I was and told me that this was unacceptable behavior, and he was going to call his parents up immediately and talk to them about it. I guess he was far more disappointed in his sister's behavior than I had been because I already knew that she was a terrible person, and I was not very surprised at this turn of events. But I think maybe Andy and his parents had been expecting a little more from her, and she had really let them down. And I think that is what really screwed things up for her after that call, because once they knew what she had tried to pull, they were all incredibly pissed. Andy did not speak to her directly, but I could tell that he was not going to let this go because it was pretty insulting to me, and he was really just disappointed with his sister. Once I came back home from the airport, Andy told me that I did not need to speak to Steffi anymore, but I did not have to be told twice since I did not want anything to do with her anyway. I didn't hear from anybody from his family for the rest of the day, not even his parents, but I knew that he was on the phone with them on and off throughout the day. Tempers were running high that day, so I chose not to talk to anybody about it because I knew that everybody was already feeling upset about things, and I did not want to add to it. So I just kept quiet and waited for the storm to subside. 2 days passed, and nothing happened, but I did speak to my in-laws during that time, and they told me how sorry they were about the way that Steffi had treated me. But I told them it was no big deal because it wasn't exactly their fault. I had seen the way that they had raised their son, so I knew that the parenting was not the problem. And if there was anybody to blame for how Steffi turned out, then it was just herself. Andy and I were also back to normal pretty quickly after that. I did not ask him about any of the consequences that Steffi would have to face for her actions, because I was just not interested in any of that. All I knew was that I did not have to interact with her anymore, and that was enough for me. But then, after 2 days of the incident, I got to know that the wedding was canceled and her fiancé had left her. And that was an indirect consequence of what she had done to me. When Andy and I came back home from work that day, he told me that Steffi was blaming our family for breaking up her and her fiancé. And I was really confused as to how that was even logical because we had not spoken to her after that incident at the airport. However, apparently this had actually happened because after that incident, once Andy had told his parents what Steffi had tried to do at the airport, they had called her up and told her to apologize to me. But she did not even think that she had done anything wrong and instead started telling her parents that I was rude and stingy. And she was glad that I left. So her parents got really upset, and they told her that they would no longer be paying for the wedding, and she could find somebody else to fund her extravagant event now. She tried to make it seem like she did not care, but it would be huge trouble for her to cover all the expenses of the wedding herself since she had just quit her job and started her own business a couple of months ago. And they had not broken even yet, so paying for everything herself was out of the question. In spite of knowing that, she tried to make it seem like she did not care about any of it because she did not want to apologize to me or even acknowledge that she screwed up. And the day of the wedding is just a few weeks away since it's literally next month, so this is a bit of an emergency situation for her right now. From what Andy told me after that conversation with her parents, she decided to talk to her fiancé and let him know that her parents would no longer be covering the expenses for the wedding, so she expected him to take over. And I think that's what led to a huge fight between the two of them because it was obviously really unfair of her to kind of just spring it on him with barely a few weeks to go before the wedding. So, they got into a fight, and that's how the wedding got canceled. Once I knew the whole story from Andy, I asked him how he got to know about all of this, and he told me that after the fight with her fiancé, Steffi showed up at their parents' house and fought with them as well, and had been blaming them and me for what happened. She had mostly just been blaming me, which I think is really unfair because I didn't even have anything to do with this situation. She said that because of me, first, she had to cancel her trip with her girlfriends because I refused to pay up, and now she was going to have to cancel her entire wedding. And her fiancé was probably going to break up with her because she did not see any other way out of this. The trip thing I do not agree with in the slightest because there had been absolutely no discussion about me paying for anything, so it was stupid of her to expect anything from me. But I do feel kind of bad that her wedding is getting canceled. I feel like I should not have complained to my husband and been so up in arms about the whole thing. I guess I just feel kind of sad for her because I know that she was really looking forward to getting married. I'm just here for reassurance, if I'm being very honest. AITA for complaining to my husband when my sister-in-law told me that she expected me to sponsor her bachelorette trip for all of her friends at the airport? Update 1. Hi, first and foremost, thank you so much for letting me know that I am indeed not the one at fault here. I think I really needed to hear that. I had been feeling really terrible about everything, and it did not help that Steffi had been posting sad things about getting betrayed and stuff. It has been 5 days since the airport incident, and even though I have her blocked everywhere, I know for a fact that she has been posting weird, sad quotes for attention, and when anybody asks her about it, she tells them her side of the story and pretends to be the victim. So, any remorse that I had about her wedding getting canceled, it's all gone now because clearly she will stop at nothing to make me look like the villain in her story, and I don't need to feel bad for her. She has even gone to the extent of telling people that while she had expected me to stab her in the back, she did not think that her brother would ever encourage me or tolerate something like this, but she was obviously wrong. And her brother couldn't care less about her feelings. Again, I feel like I need to emphasize that she had literally never ever asked me if I was comfortable or willing to pay for the expenses of the trip for her and all her friends. So the fact that she had to cancel it at the very last minute and come back from the airport was her own fault. But somehow, in her version of the story, apparently, we had had this discussion several times, but I flipped at the airport and decided to throw a fit and leave. Which was a huge slap in the face for her because then she and all her friends had to go back home, and the trip didn't even happen, and it was really humiliating. It's infuriating the way that she has been spreading these lies about me, but I'm actually happy that most of the relatives that she has been telling this to have reached out to me to ask about it because it seemed really out of character for me, and I was able to clear the air and tell them my side of things. And for the most part, people have believed me, so whatever she's trying to do is not working, and she is coming off as a total liar and an idiot. Andy told me that he wanted to speak to her and tell her that she can't just go around lying about us, but I told him that he did not need to say a word to her because the things that she's doing are backfiring. And instead of damaging our reputation, she's just doing it to herself, so we can just let her carry on. Update. So, it has been around 2 weeks since we learned that Steffi would no longer be getting married. She had been talking crap about us to all of her relatives, but it did not work because most people did not trust what she was saying and came to me to confirm the story. And I told them the truth. After a few days, pretty much everybody knew the truth, so there was no point in her trying to make us look like the bad guys, so she stopped. We thought that it would be the end of the story, but apparently not because now she has moved in with her parents since, unfortunately, she and her fiancé have broken up, and she has nowhere else to go. Her fiancé was a decent guy and had offered to let her have the apartment, and he could move out, but she would not be able to cover the rent on her own. And so she chose to move out and live with her parents instead. Andy and I think it's really ironic that she had so much to say back when her parents had told her that they would not be funding her wedding, and she had pretended like she had everything sorted. But now her life was falling apart, and the only people that she could turn to were her parents. My in-laws were also nice enough to take her in, even after all the nasty behavior from her end. But now that she's living with them, I guess she should have had the common sense not to go on talking crap about me and Andy. At least in front of her parents, because they were Andy's parents as well. But she really is one of the stupidest people I've ever come across, because even after my in-laws made it clear to her that she was not allowed to talk crap about us and pretend like we were the bad guys, she went on doing so in front of them, and would constantly try to turn them against us. So my in-laws decided to tell her that she could either accept her mistake and try to become a better person, or they would not allow her to live with them anymore. And that obviously pissed her off because now she has taken to messaging Andy and reminding him every day that I did not just ruin her bachelorette trip and her wedding, but now I also ruined her life because her fiancé dumped her and her parents only keep siding with me, as if any of that is my fault. He has not blocked her yet because she's family, but she is on thin ice right now, and a couple more texts against me, and I'm pretty sure that Andy is going to show up at his parents' house and teach her a lesson in person. I am pretty sure that she is just doing this to rile us up or vent her frustrations, but it's unacceptable. Update. So, we did it. I really just could not take it anymore because she was really taking things too far and saying the most horrible things about me while messaging Andy. She even expected to get away with it because she thought that we would not actively try to get back at her. But unfortunately for her, we are not that nice. She had called me every name in the book and referred to me as jealous and insecure, and had even said that I did not look any better than I did back in high school, which was just a straight-up lie. She knows that I am very touchy about my appearance and makes it a point to pick on it every time that she can, and it has become very apparent at this point. I also don't even understand why she thinks that I would be jealous of her, because right now, my life's a lot better than hers, and she literally has nothing that I would be jealous or insecure about. But anyway, these were the things that she had been texting Andy in an attempt to make us mad, and she succeeded in doing so because earlier this evening, we went to my in-laws' house and confronted her because she needed to stop believing that she could say and do absolutely whatever she wanted to, and then we would just allow her to get away with it all the time. We had already spoken to Andy's parents, and they knew what we were here for, so they did not ask many questions and just let us in. Steffi had been sitting in the living room, and she seemed very surprised to see us, and actually had the audacity to ask her parents why we were there, as if we were not supposed to be there. Like she was the only person allowed to visit her parents. They did not answer, and instead, I took over the conversation and told her that she needed to learn how to keep her mouth shut because I had had enough of her BS. And I was not going to tolerate her running her mouth about me anymore, so she needed to stop talking about me to anyone at all. And if she did not do so, then I would make sure that my side of the story went public as well, and that would not end well for her. She immediately started throwing a fit and accusing me of blackmailing her and her family, of ambushing her when she was asked to stay quiet and just apologize for everything. She told us that she would not do that and started packing her things and left within an hour because now she knew that she was not welcome here and was going to live with a friend. I am positive that she will be back in a couple of weeks because I don't think any friend will allow her to live with them free of cost, and judging by how much of a miser she is, I highly doubt that she will cough up anything when she can go back to her parents and live with them for free. But as of now, we're all free of her, and I would say that I'm much better off right now, and I think that everybody would agree with me when I say that.